Corruption, an insidious force that has shadowed societies since the dawn of civilization. It is the ghost in the machine of governance, the hidden tax on progress, the corrosive acid that eats away at the foundations of trust and justice. From the earliest city-states to the most advanced global powers, its presence has been a constant, a dark mirror reflecting the frailties of human nature when faced with power. From ancient empires to modern democracies, corruption has shaped history in ways both subtle and catastrophic. A subtle act, like a clerk misdirecting a single bag of grain, could mean starvation for a family. A catastrophic failure, like a general accepting a bribe to betray his city's defenses, could mean the end of an empire. To understand this enduring challenge, we must first define it. Corruption, the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. At its core, the definition is deceptively simple, but within this lies a universe of misconduct. Entrusted power isn't just the authority of a king or a president, it's the power of a local magistrate, a tax collector, a priest, or a corporate executive. And private gain isn't just a bag of gold. It's land, titles, influence, a job for a son, or an advantage for a friend. It manifests as bribery, embezzlement, nepotism, and cronyism, a vocabulary of decay that has been spoken in every language throughout time. Its roots go back millennia. Our journey begins in the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. As cities like Ur and Babylon grew, they required complex administration to manage grain stores, irrigation, and taxes. With bureaucracy came opportunity. The famous Code of Hammurabi, dating to around 1750 BCE, wasn't just a list of laws, it was a direct response to a society grappling with misconduct. When the code decreed death for a city official who stole civic property, it was because this was a real and present danger to the stability of the state. Across the desert in ancient Egypt, the concept of Ma'at, divine order, truth and justice, was the bedrock of society. Corruption was seen as a violation of this cosmic balance, yet it persisted. The ancient tale of the eloquent peasant, written over 4,000 years ago, tells of a common man's long struggle to get justice from a high-ranking, corrupt official. It reveals that even in a society built on divine law, the fight for accountability was an earthly, human struggle. In imperial China, the scale of the empire created vast opportunities for graft. Under the Qin and Han dynasties, a sprawling bureaucracy governed everything from salt production to military conscription. Local magistrates, far from the emperor's gaze, often extorted the very peasants they were meant to protect. The Confucian ideal was of the virtuous, selfless public servant, but the reality was often a desperate struggle for power and wealth. In response, the Han dynasty established the censorate, an entire branch of government dedicated to investigating official misconduct, one of history's first institutional anti-corruption bodies. And in Rome, the Republic, for all its ideals of civic virtue, became a hotbed of spectacular corruption. Ambitious governors like Gaius Verus were sent to rule provinces like Sicily, which they treated as personal piggy banks, looting art and extorting the populace. His prosecution by the famed orator Cicero became a landmark case, exposing the rot at the heart of the system. Private tax collectors, the publicani, bid for contracts and then squeezed provinces dry to maximize their profits. Ultimately, this systemic corruption eroded faith in the Republic, paving the way for civil war and the rise of emperors who commanded the loyalty of armies, not citizens. As societies evolved, so did the complexity and audacity of corruption. With the fall of Rome, power in Europe fragmented, but corruption did not vanish, it simply changed its form. Throughout the Middle Ages and into the early modern period, it adapted to new structures of power, the feudal manor, the universal church, and the burgeoning nation-state. During the Middle Ages, corruption found fertile ground within the church. The practice of simony, the buying and selling of church offices, became widespread. But the most notorious practice was the sale of indulgences, certificates promising remission from punishment for sins. For reformers like Martin Luther, this was the ultimate corruption, the monetization of salvation itself, sparking the Protestant Reformation. Monarchs and nobles practiced rampant nepotism and perfected their own methods. To fund their courts and wars, monarchs in countries like France began the systematic sale of public offices. This practice, known as venality, created a class of officials who viewed their positions not as a public trust, but as a private investment to be exploited for profit, weakening the state from within. And with colonization, governors exploited local resources and accepted bribes. As European powers looked outward, they exported their models of corruption across the globe. The British East India Company, a private corporation acting with the power of a state, systematically drained wealth from India. These colonial structures of extraction and elite capture established deep-rooted patterns of corruption, the painful legacies of which still echo in post-colonial societies. But a new wind was blowing. The Enlightenment championed reason and transparency. Yet, the 19th century's Industrial Revolution unleashed new forces. In America's Gilded Age, immense corporate wealth collided with politics. Robber barons bought politicians, and urban political machines like New York's Tammany Hall turned democracy into a transactional enterprise, a stark reminder that new forms of wealth create new temptations. Fast forward to the 20th century, and corruption takes on new, often global dimensions. The rise of multinational corporations, vast international aid programs, and a complex global financial system created new, shadowy corridors for illicit transactions. Power and money could now cross borders with unprecedented speed, making accountability more difficult than ever. The stage is set for high-profile scandals. First, Teapot Dome in the 1920s. Secretary of the Interior Albert Fall secretly leased federal naval oil reserves to private companies. In exchange, he received over $400,000 in bribes. The ensuing investigation captivated the nation, and Fall became the first U.S. cabinet officer to be sentenced to prison for a felony committed while in office. It was a stark lesson in the vulnerability of public trust. Then, Watergate. What began as a bungled break-in exposed a web of espionage and cover-ups, forcing a president to resign. Investigations uncovered a vast conspiracy orchestrated from the White House, involving illegal wiretapping, secret slush funds, and the use of the CIA and FBI to harass political opponents. President Richard Nixon's resignation was a constitutional crisis, but also a testament to the resilience of democratic institutions. But this was not just an American phenomenon. In Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, President Mobutu Sese Seko became the archetype of the modern kleptocrat. Over 3 decades, he systematically looted his nation's vast mineral wealth, allegedly plundering up to $15 billion, a devastating example of how corruption can steal a nation's future. At the same time, corporate corruption went global. In the 1970s, the Lockheed bribery scandals revealed that the American aerospace giant had paid millions to high-ranking officials in West Germany, Japan, Italy, and the Netherlands to secure contracts. The scandal triggered political crises in multiple countries and exposed the dark side of international business. From the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the encrypted ledgers of global finance, the methods and scale of corruption have evolved dramatically. Yet the fundamental dynamic remains unchanged: the betrayal of public trust for private gain. This long, dark history is not just a collection of stories about greed and failure. It is a vital lesson. It teaches us where the vulnerabilities lie, how power can be subverted, and why the struggle for transparency, accountability, and the rule of law is a battle that every generation must fight anew. As the 21st century dawned, the scale of corporate corruption reached staggering new heights. A prime example is the German engineering giant, Siemens. For years it operated a sophisticated global bribery machine, systematically paying off officials to secure public works contracts. This wasn't the work of a few rogue employees, it was an institutionalized practice. The company maintained off-the-books slush funds totaling over $1 billion, used to bribe officials in countries from Argentina and Venezuela to Iraq and Bangladesh. The subsequent investigation led to a landmark settlement in 2008, with Siemens paying over $1.6 billion in fines to American and European authorities. It was a wake-up call, demonstrating how deeply corruption could be embedded within the culture of a respected multinational corporation. A few years later, Brazil was rocked by what became one of the largest corruption scandals in history: Operation Car Wash. The scheme centered on the state-owned oil company, Petrobras. A cartel of construction companies systematically overcharged Petrobras for contracts, funneling the excess funds back to company executives and politicians as bribes and kickbacks. The investigation, spearheaded by Judge Sergio Moro, uncovered a web of corruption that implicated the highest levels of Brazilian society. Tens of billions of dollars were misappropriated, leading to the impeachment of one president and the imprisonment of another, along with hundreds of business leaders and politicians. The scandal triggered a severe economic recession and a profound crisis of faith in the country's political establishment, showing how corruption can destabilize an entire nation. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, the 1MDB scandal revealed a different yet equally audacious form of plunder. Billions of dollars were allegedly siphoned from a state investment fund, One Malaysia Development Berhad, which was originally intended to promote economic development. Instead, the funds were laundered through a complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts, financing an incredibly lavish lifestyle for a few connected individuals. The stolen money was used to buy luxury real estate in New York and London, a $250 million super yacht, fine art, and even to bankroll Hollywood films, including The Wolf of Wall Street, a film ironically about financial fraud. The scandal implicated the Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak and became a global symbol of kleptocracy, where state assets are treated as a personal piggy bank. These scandals, while shocking, are not isolated incidents. They are part of a global pattern. In South Africa, the phenomenon of state capture showed how a wealthy family, the Guptas, used their close ties to President Jacob Zuma to influence cabinet appointments and steer state contracts toward their own companies, effectively hijacking parts of the government for private profit. From corporate bribery to political kickbacks and outright state theft, these cases span countries and cultures, yet they share common DNA. So what are these common threads? First, weak or compromised institutions. When judiciaries, law enforcement, and oversight bodies are underfunded, politicized, or corrupt themselves, there is no one to guard the guards. Second, unchecked authority. Whether it's a powerful CEO, a dominant political party, or an authoritarian ruler who operates without accountability. Third is opacity. Corruption thrives in the shadows. The use of anonymous shell companies, complex financial instruments, and secretive tax havens creates a labyrinth where illicit money can disappear from public view. Finally, misaligned incentives, where the rewards for corrupt behavior outweigh the risks of getting caught. Together, these factors create a fertile ecosystem for corruption to take root and spread. But where there is darkness, there are also those who fight to bring in the light. The fight back is stronger and more sophisticated than ever. It is led by courageous whistleblowers who risk their careers and safety to expose wrongdoing. It is fueled by investigative journalism, with global collaborations like the Panama and Pandora Papers using data analysis to uncover secrets the powerful want to keep hidden. And it is driven by powerful civic activism as citizens from Seoul to Bucharest take to the streets to demand accountability and an end to impunity. On the global stage, powerful frameworks are being put in place. The United Nations Convention Against Corruption provides a universal legal framework for cooperation, while organizations like the OECD push for stronger anti-bribery enforcement. Groups like Transparency International relentlessly measure and campaign against corruption, keeping the issue on the global agenda, and crucially, we are seeing results. High-profile convictions, once unthinkable, are becoming more common, sending a clear signal that no one is above the law. These convictions act as powerful deterrents, shifting the risk-reward calculation for potential wrongdoers. From Hammurabi's ancient court to the Teapot Dome scandal, from Watergate's political conspiracy to the global financial crimes of today, corruption is a persistent shadow woven deep into the fabric of human history. It is not merely a crime of greed, it is a force that erodes trust, deepens inequality, undermines democracy, and steals the future from millions. But so too is our resilience, our demand for justice, and our capacity for reform. The fight against corruption is not a single battle, but a continuous struggle. It is won by strengthening institutions, demanding transparency, supporting a free press, and protecting those who speak truth to power. Recognizing the patterns, understanding the mechanisms, and celebrating the victories. That is how we turn the tide. The fight truly begins with each of us. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into history's biggest stories.